What a night. We've got Ebola possibly breaking out in New York. And, of course, we got this violence on our border up in Canada. Back to Hardball and time for the round table. The Washington Post, Robert Costa rejoins us here. Michelle Bernard of the Bernard Center for Women and senior NBC News political reporter Perry Bacon. Well, the pressure must be mounting on the GOP because less than 2 weeks from now, Election Day is coming. We're starting to get a peek into their soul, and it reeks of elitism, at least one case. A GOP leader in high demand to stump for Republican candidates this year, New Jersey governor and likely 2016 presidential candidate Christie waded into condescension this week. First, Christie told the U.S. Chamber of Commerce that he's tired of hearing about the minimum wage. Tired.
I got to tell you the truth. I'm tired of hearing about the minimum wage. I really am. I don't think there's a mother or father sitting around a kitchen table tonight in America who are saying, you know, honey, if our son or daughter could just make a higher minimum wage, my God, all our dreams would be realized. Is that what parents aspire to for their children? They aspire to a greater growing America where their children have the ability to make much more money and have much greater success than they've had. And that's not about a higher minimum wage, everybody.
Well, in that same speech, Christie also said Republicans catch this need to win governor's races this year. Guess why? Guess why? So they can control the, as he put it, the voting mechanisms in 2016. In other words, how people get to vote or not get to vote.
What would you rather have if you were a Republican candidate and the nominee for president? Would you rather have Rick Scott in Florida overseeing the voting mechanism or Charlie Crist? Would you rather have Scott Walker in Wisconsin overseeing the voting mechanism, or would you rather have Mary Burke? Who would you rather have in Ohio? John Kasich or Ed Fitzgerald?
Do you like the way he sort of softened the tone for Mary Burke? Like she's a little weaker. That had a right-wing smell to it. That screw the little people, those who have humble goals of making more than $7 an hour. And by the way, don't let them vote. Perry, how do you miss the message there?
But the next election Christie's running in is the Republican primary of 2016.
So explain why this would work.
So this would work because a lot of Republican activists do not support the minimum wage. They the minimum wage. They do not support. They support voter ID law. So I think this is who Christie is. He's like very blunt, very direct, and he's often very conservative on issues.
Is this how he got elected governor? I thought he went down the middle. Michelle,
look, I think
this isn't moderate.
No, look, the speech he gave yesterday, I truly believe is completely bunk, and by 2016 he will be running away from it as fast as he possibly can. There is something, despite all of the gate problems and the bridge problems that he has in New Jersey, there is something about Christie that is authentic and that people like. I don't believe that he meant what he said. He'll run away from it. In polling right before the last election, he was polling at 30% in the African American community. And he got 15 to 20% of the black vote in the last election. Why on earth would any Republican run away from it? He's the only Republican right now that can get that many black people.
He's going after the hard right in Iowa and the people that, first of all, I think he's talking like Mitt Romney. This thing about everybody's no, listen why. Because if you are giving a speech to the young CEOs of America, that's a good speech. But if you're giving to regular people hoping to make a regular amount of money in their life and maybe a little more, they go, what are you talking about?
Frankly, I'm surprised by Christie. I just went to a football game with Christie in Camden, and he was there with a largely African-American community, and he was talking about poverty, and he seems to try to moderate his message.
Was he mocking minimum wage?
No, he wasn't. He was doing the soft touch. So I'm just surprised. He seems to be soft, focused on poverty on one hand, and then another day he's bashing the minimum wage. But he doesn't have a coherent message yet.
Here's the problem. It was I think it was inarticulate, purposely so because of the audience he was speaking to. There are a lot of parents, truth be told, who sit around and say, who don't sit around saying, I am aspiring to my son and daughter to make the minimum wage. What he forgot about is the part of the audience that actually makes the minimum wage and are trying to earn more money so that they can pay for their children.
You got a hot hand here, Michelle. So I'm going to ask you this. You're trying to be nice to the guy. Fine. When you're talking to an audience, forget anybody.
Yeah.
Everybody knows from watching this show, who don't watch knows this too, the Republican strategy has been the party's largely a minority white party that's getting smaller. It's just a fact. Yeah. And people of color tend to be Democrats. So it's not racist. It's just partisan meanness, nastiness. Yeah. But when he says control the mechanism, what do you hear?
No, when he says control the mechanism, the very first thing I think is this cannot be the only Republican in the country that gets black people to vote for him, because what he just said sounded like code for do not let black people vote. Yeah. That's a huge problem.
So I don't get your message tonight. Is he in the game with black voters? voters or not?
If he was polling at 30% with African American voters again, and he is the only Republican in the country to do so, if he's going to be smart and he's going to run for president in 2016, he's got to get away from what he said yesterday.
He's done a lot on prison sentencing. So I think it's a complicated message for Christie. He has his hard message in front of the chamber, but when he's back in his state, he was just at the NAACP in New Jersey giving a big speech about how you have to have a bail reform and help people get people out of prison.
Exactly. So the bottom line is he's smart enough to know that in a general election, what he said yesterday doesn't get him any black votes.
I think I have
or Latino or anyone who's not white.
Everybody knows I'm from Philly, and South Jersey and Philly are the same place. And this sense of the Mr. Tough guy, a lot of it we like because there's so much inauthenticity in politics, so much BS, and so much charming people into voting for them. You know, Clinton, a lot of these guys are really good at it. This guy has a different approach. He doesn't charm you or patronize you. He sort of challenges you, and he goes, you know, none of your business. Leave me alone on the personal stuff. And we like a little bit of that, a little tincture of that. But we don't like the full load. We don't like the Mr. Tough guy.
Look at the polling in Iowa. It shows that Christie has very high unfavorable ratings already, much higher than the other Republicans, much higher than Mitt Romney. You and I like a little feisty. I'm not sure people in Iowa do. I'm not sure how well that style is going to wear at the national stage.
I think I'm hardball on that Sunday morning. But anyway, the roundtable is coming back to talk about what's going to turn this election around the next week. What are the issues? Ebola? What are the issues that are going to ISIS? What just happened in Canada? What's maybe happening in New York City with that new person maybe contacted the disease and showing it by tonight? What's going to move this election in a week and a half? We'll be right back with the panel.